Hello everyone. In my last video I promised that I will start building this kit as fast as possible, so yesterday I finished the assembly process of the new Trumpeter SU-102 tank destroyer. As you see, this is how it looks. It is a very interesting vehicle, in my opinion. Looks very original, so I thought that I will tell you a little bit about the building process, about pros and cons of this particular kit. Let's start from the top of the vehicle. This is a DSK machine gun. It looks very well, in my opinion, but I replaced the original Trumpeter gun barrel and used a spare part from Takom DSK because the Trumpeter one was poorly detailed. Next, as you see, this kit have a metal gun barrel, so it's a nice addition as always, but this gun barrel have one cons, because the muzzle brakes comes from two halves, so you need to cut off the muzzle brake parts from the plastic barrel and glue this plastic part to the metal gun barrel. It is a little bit risky, but in my vehicle it finally looks okay. As you see, I added some weld seams on the muzzle brake and some cast texture. Of course, on the mantlet I also added the cast texture. The kit have molded good looking texture, but handmade looks better, in my opinion. To do this I used acrylic AK interactive modeling gray putty, diluted it with some water, and used a stiff brush and applied it on the model. Nothing complicated, but the final effect is very good, in my opinion. I also added some weld seams, and this part of the kit looks pretty convincing, in my opinion. Next, let's talk about the hull of the vehicle. As you see, the hull is rather straightforward. It hasn't got a lot of details, or it's not a very tidy vehicle, rather simple Russian construction, Soviet construction, sorry. Let's start from the front plate. As you see, the front plate uh, wasn't, as you see, the front plate is simple, and to be honest, the only one thing that it is worth to mention is the weld seams, because the kit have molded on weld seams, as you can see here, but some of them are missed, so I added the weld seams here. I also added the signs after the cutting of the armor plates, and what's more, the wiring for front headlight and horn. Next, the engine deck, also nothing special. The big P mesh, but it is perfectly fitted, so it's easy to place. I also added the cast texture on the driver hatch, and the next thing that is interesting are the periscopes, because the Trumpeter don't provide the periscopes in the box. I've added some spare parts from the other builds. It's a little bit strange, because Trumpeter give us front light lenses from clear plastic, but we don't get the periscopes. A little bit strange in my opinion. Next, let's go to the roof of the fighting compartment. Again, it's not very detailed. Here also I've added some weld seams around the details and periscope from spare box. The rear of the vehicle is a rather simple part and nothing hard to do, besides one thing: the smoke. The barrels here have molded on straps. They comes in one slide molded piece, but they have the molding seams here. When I tried to sand it off, I also sanded the molded straps, so I need to add the new one, and they looks okay. They are not perfect, but they are fine. And I've also added some seams around the hooks on the rear of the vehicle. Now the sides of this tank destroyer, as you see here, are placed the external fuel tanks. They also have molded on plastic straps. I would prefer the P parts, but you know, there is always a place for the aftermarket producers. Here the handles for the external fuel tanks are made from P parts, so they are thin and fragile. Exactly, they looks exactly how they should look. As you see here, and here I've also added the handmade details. I used a thin wire to do this. I compared the vehicle with rear photos of the SU-101 from Kubinka Museum, so it is easy to add some details. There are only a few. Also, I replaced this tiny parts. I used the miniard spare parts from SU-85. And what's more, as you see, this kit is rather straightforward and easy to build. So the gun and upper hull comes together without any problems, and the parts are perfectly fitted together. The lower hull and upper hull fit together very well, as you see, without any seams or without any problems. Next, let's talk a little bit about the suspension and tracks. As you see, this kit have link and end tracks. They have molded on sack on the upper run. I do not glue them together just to remove them for painting. I will try to remove these tracks now. Okay, I was managed to do this without any problems. As you see, the tracks are pin marks free, so you need to only clean up the sprue connections and put them together. They have one minor issue in my opinion. As you see, they have some seam marks on the guide horns, but they are not too visible. Some of them are hiding between the wheels, so it's interesting because the other wafer type tracks from recent released RFM rifled model Egyptian T-34 122 also have the same problem. The tracks was very good, but they also have some sink marks on the guide horse. But overall, they are well detailed and looks very good on the model. And the last but not least, the wheels. As you see, the vehicle is based on T44 suspension, so it's nothing complicated. Typical late war Soviet project. the front wheel, the idler wheel, and the road wheels. The road wheels comes from 4 halves each. The details on the wheels are pretty good. Each wheel comes from 4 parts, so the 2 halves of the wheel and 2 rubber tires. This is a very handy for painting because I can remove this from all wheels and part this separately, and after painting put it back here and put on the vehicle, so I no need any masking or slowly brush painting. Of course all wheels are removable for the painting process, and nothing more. So let's conclude this build. Okay, in conclusion, I can say that building of this kit was really enjoyable things. The fitting of all parts are very good. The engineering of kit is also on high level. The instruction haven't got any errors. I can't find anything wrong in the instruction during the build. It's rather straightforward build because it took me a couple of evenings with some detailing, like the weld seams, like adding cast texture, adding straps on for the barrel on the rear of the vehicle, some extra work with anti-aircraft machine gun, and adding the wiring for front headlight and for the horn. So if you want to build this kit straight from the box, it took you 2 evenings in my opinion. But as you see, it's easy to add some details and made this kit even better that it comes from the box. What's more, of course, it's also not a perfect kit. The muzzle brake, it comes from 2 plastic parts and they need some extra care. The hardest thing was remove the seam line inside the muzzle brake. I used a lot of putty to do this, and it takes me a lot of time. Of course, some weldings are missed, so if you care about them, you need to make them yourself. If not, just leave this kit as it comes from the box. In my opinion, I can recommend this kit. It's very straightforward and easy build with with possibility to add some extra bits. The biggest issue for me is lack of the periscopes in the box. I don't know why the Trumpeter released this kit without these parts. Beside, despite that kit concludes the other clear parts. Beside this, it's a very good kit, not too expensive, so I can recommend it. Thank you for watching, and see you on my next episodes.